There we go. We're on. Hello there, it's Annmarie Miles from Upper Trosnan Baptist Church. It is so good to be with you today. Usually Pastor Richard would do Sunday at 4, but I thought, oh yeah, let's give him a day off and that I would come and share some thoughts with you. I was looking in at the news headlines kind of over the last few days and, stories that were trending on social media. And it's quite dismal, isn't it? There's some really, really tragic stuff going on. I mean, it's the anniversary of that terrible terrorist attack in Manchester, and I've seen the story of how some of the families and members are gathering to remember those that were lost, and such a terrible, terrible thing to happen, and so sad. And of course, we've got the ongoing situation in the Ukraine, where there is still dreadful war going on, and some of the stories coming out of that again are just so tragic. And even in pop culture, I mean, quite often pop culture is a place that we can go to kind of, I don't know, get away from the seriousness maybe of political debate or worldwide drama. We can kind of go into where the stars hang out and where the glitz and the glamour is, and maybe find a little bit of respite in there. But I mean, this week the two biggest kind of pop culture stories that I've seen certainly are a married couple who, or a formerly married couple, who are both actors, and they are now suing one another and saying dreadful things about each other, whether they're true or not true. They still are terrible stories that have come out. And then there are two women who I believe were friends at one stage, whose husbands are colleagues, who are now suing each other over things that have been said and things that have been done. And I just thought to myself, wow, it's a bit exhausting. It's a bit tiring to think that is there anywhere we can go that there's good news? Is there anywhere we can, any story we can read that will I don't know, lift some of the kind of heaviness? Because I just sense that we've just come out of the pandemic, and we would love to think that things would be lighter and easier, but that rarely happens, does it? There's just different problems and different issues, and there's not much that we can do. There's not really a lot that we can do. I think what we can do, we should do. If we can give towards causes that help those who are struggling, either locally or other side of the world, then we should. And I think if we can only give a little, then we should. If we can only pray for 5 or 10 minutes, then we should. I do believe that. But a lot of the times it feels there's not really much I can do. And the burden of that, the burden of worldwide and closer to home and even personal things. I mean, in our family, we've got some sadness in our family at the moment, and the whole lot of it just feels like such a weight. So there's two things really that come out of this for me. Two things that have come to me this week as I've been kind of pondering this. And one is the feeding of the 5,000, where there's lots of people there. They need to be fed. They've been there for hours. There's nothing to feed them with. And Jesus' disciples are thinking, gosh, if we were to feed all these people, we'd need this amount of money and it would take us this long to earn it, and da-da-da. And then this boy walks up and says, well, I've got this. Can you use this? And it's 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And Jesus does use it. He takes it and he feeds a multitude from it. And just that simplicity of the bravery of that boy to say, well, I've got this. This is any good. And I think we should. I think if all we have is £2, £5, if all we have is 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I think we should go to Jesus and say, listen, Jesus, this is all I have, but if you can use it, please use it. But the other thing that has come to me this week, I think, is those verses in Matthew 11:28-30, where Jesus says, come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke from me, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I think if you feel the weight, as I have this week, the weight of just just like a responsibility for all of these huge things that are happening, hardly any of them that I can do anything about. We can go to Jesus and say, can you just take this? Can you just take this off me? Can you just, it's just too heavy for me. It's too big for me. And the promise that Jesus gives doesn't mean that we don't have any responsibility to do anything. You know, there is an exchange. His burden is light, but there's still things we should do. But what he does say is that he will take the heaviness. So if you're feeling weighed down, by the burden of responsibility, the burden of what's going on in the world and how little we seem to be able to do anything about it, one, I would say, do what you can, give what you can, even if it's only a small thing, and just ask Jesus to provide a multitude, to provide an increase. And the other thing I would say is go to him, because that's the key thing about that verse. It starts with, come to me. We must go to him. We can't just kind of throw our burdens at him from a distance. We have to go to him. He says, come to me if you're weary and heavy laden, and I give you rest. It's Jesus who gives the rest. And he takes the heaviness from us. We then have his light burden, so we still have responsibility. We've still got stuff to do. We can't just sit around doing nothing. But there's an exchange. So that's really what I wanted to share. If you're feeling overburdened, if you're feeling heavy laden, go to Jesus. He is the one who gives rest, and he will help you. So we pray God's blessing on you. We pray for everyone who watches our YouTube videos. We pray for your blessing, and you can contact us at www.trosnan.org or via our YouTube page or our other social media. If you want specific prayer for anything, it would be our privilege to pray for you. But we do pray God's blessing, and we'll see you next time.